My name is Tara Ohayon. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Aaron Family JCC.
Hi, my name is Orly Fass, and I'm a Community Israel Educator.
Hi, I'm Artie Allen, Chief Impact Officer at the Dallas Jewish Community Foundation.
I'm Artie Allen. I'm the past CEO of the Aaron Family JCC.
Now, did you want to read this statement first about what Mifgash is?
The recent trip that the four of us went on, a partnership between the Dallas Jewish Community Foundation, the Schultz Family Israel Fellows, and the I Center, was designed to give participants a first-hand immersive experience in Israel while exploring its complexities in light of the recent events of October 7, 2023. The trip promised to be both memorable and enriching, and it certainly was. This experience offered a unique chance for us to meet with and hear directly from diverse Israeli voices, including those that were directly impacted by the events and the aftermath of October 7th. We were able to engage with thought leaders to explore how we can further impact Jewish and Israel education. And we all developed a personal narrative and perspective on Israel in the context of the new realities shaped by recent events, which will help guide our future engagement and advocacy.
What was your first impression of Mifgash when you saw the itinerary?
So let's see. My first impression when I saw the itinerary, I was, nervous a little bit. I wasn't sure what to expect when we went to Israel. I had not been to Israel post October 7th. And so I was just unsure of what we were going to see and a little bit nervous, though excited at the same time to see and meet the people who I read about in the itinerary.
I was excited. I looked at the itinerary and I saw that there was a variety of voices. There were Jewish Israelis, there were Arab Israelis, there were survivors, there were politicians. So I felt like it was going to be very thorough and a diverse experience. I was probably just nervous about how much we were going to be doing in 4 days because we did a lot.
Yes, I was a little overwhelmed when I first saw the amount of things all packed in and wondered how it was going to be physically, mentally, emotionally, what kind of toll it was going to take in such a short amount of time.
I was also nervous about the experience. I had not been there as well post October 7th, and I felt that there was a lot that I was going to experience, and I felt it was going to be very, very emotional for me to see what I was going to see. And there were a lot of opportunities to be able to really engage and dig deep into your own soul to really experience what we were going to experience. And I just was a little nervous, a little wondering whether I could handle, what was going to be, what I was going to see. Of course, the itinerary was really, really packed, and there was a lot for us to do. And it was just really an opportunity to really immerse myself in what Israel was experiencing, and it was an interesting time to be there.
Next question I was finished with is, how did you feel about the itinerary being jam-packed with visits to historic sites from 10 to 7? I'm going to just start always.
Oh, okay.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I don't mind. So how did I feel about it being jam-packed? So the itinerary was very jam-packed. We went from early in the morning till late at night, but it was also very intentional. And so it didn't feel like we were just doing random things. There was a thread throughout the 4 days for us. And so the intention that was planned and the people who we met and the sites that we were at felt very thought through.
So I think in terms of seeing sites from October 7th, that's one of the reasons I wanted to go. I feel like we all have to bear witness, not just on television, but like live. I wasn't nervous about that, but everybody reacts differently. I think the most impactful part was really speaking to the people that were part of the story of October 7th.
Yeah, to just echo from both of those comments, while it did have us going all over, it was the people that really made the intensity of it. And to the brilliance of the coordinators of the I Center that mapped out this itinerary, it really did allow us, while being very busy, it was a way to give us strength as we moved on into areas that I think we would have been emotional, much more emotional. But they really did a lot of things, framing before and after some of the major intense moments, and every morning and evening, so that we really did feel like we were part of a community. So we were all doing this together.
I felt that the people that we saw were amazing. I was truly impressed and actually shocked by the passion that they had, and by the their ability to really share their stories in a way that they wanted us all to know what had happened. They wanted us to know and wanted us to really kind of feel what had happened. And they I couldn't believe how strong they were. It was truly amazing to me to see how strong those people were, and how they were able to just share and give insight and really have hope for the future, which to this day, I continue to see in my head or in my mind, the site of the Nova Festival. And I see the memorials all over, and I see some that are large and some that are small, and I see some that are with just the young and some of them that are older. I just am amazed that they really are able to just continue on and really live life the way that they're living life at this point.
How did you think you would respond when you met the people in the program and what have you? Some of this is repetitive in terms of the way the questions are.
It's okay.
Thoughts, but it's important.
How did I think I would respond? I think that I didn't know how I would respond. I really didn't know what to expect when we were going. And just kind of like Artie just said, I found so much inspiration in the people that we met. What I kept thinking about over and over were people we heard from people who were affected by October 7th, and we also heard from people who took action right after to support each other. And I kept feeling inspired by the everyday people who did extraordinary things, who just picked up and did. I mean, we could tell you story after story of things that we heard, and they were people like us who family people, had kids, doing their own thing, and some risked their lives to help others, some started whole organizations to help others, and some did simple acts. But I think the fortitude and the resilience, and I found lots of inspiration in how people didn't even hesitate to help in the aftermath.
I think I thought it would be sadder, and it wasn't not sad, obviously, it's devastating. And I think people in Israel are clearly traumatized, everybody in their own way. But I think that, this horrible thing happened, and then the whole country's at war, and everybody is doing their piece and doing their part, and everybody not just has to continue their lives, but has to contribute to the war and supporting the war and the hostage families. So it's almost like there just wasn't time to really, I don't think the country is focusing on their trauma, even though I think they're clearly traumatized.
And I think because of the constantly doing something and really not have much reflective time, we didn't have time to check our emotions. We were really responding quickly to that passion, as Tara mentioned, of the people, and their poise and articulation and the speed at which everybody was doing something. I've been to Israel, and I think all of us can say we've never seen so much solidarity with the state, flags everywhere and anywhere. And it was as if it was Independence Day, but that's how it's been every day. This total support for the hostages, first and foremost, for the soldiers, for all those that are dealing with the fact that their loved ones are not there, either because they were taken or because they are serving. There's just so many different layers of people that we we didn't even conceptualize until we were really there and saw just the layers, and yet the layers of those ordinary people doing extraordinarily good things.
I have to reiterate the nationalism, the patriotism was incredible. Bring them home now, signs everywhere, hostage signs everywhere, Israeli flags. It reminded me of right after the aftermath of 9/11 in this country, and how we really, kind of all were together. It didn't matter what political slant you had, political bend you have, whatever it is that your political affiliation is, it didn't matter. You were Israeli. You wanted to make sure that this country was going to be able to survive this terrible tragedy, and you really felt that you wanted to be a part of helping that happen. I was amazed at seeing, again, the hope and the joy that I kept seeing when I was walking on the beach, and seeing people running and seeing people exercising and people living their lives. They really, unlike some of us, or at least me, they were moving on. They were moving on, and they were doing what they needed to do, and they were taking care of one another. I just was very inspired by that.
What were some of the unexpected elements during the seminar? Remember these moments.
Does someone else want to start?
I have one.
Okay.
So we were on this trip, and there were a handful of Israeli teachers too, like teachers who were from Israel joining us. Most of us were American, but there were a handful of Israelis, and also some of the chaperones or guides were Israeli. And the last day we met the mayor, the ex-mayor of Jerusalem, or the deputy mayor of Jerusalem, and she put together a program basically to support the wives of the reservists who were serving. So when the men go up, when they leave home, their wives and their children, small children, older children, she sets up a system where somebody calls them, a social worker calls them, helps them with laundry, gets them food, gives them emotional support. So she was talking to us about this. She was one of the speakers. And one of the teachers, I could cry even thinking about it, one of the teachers who was with us just raised her hand and said, I just want to thank you personally because I'm one of the people who got support from your program. And she started crying.
We all
started crying, and, talking about she was talking about how she's a teacher and she just has to get on with, she has small children and she has to take care of her children. She has to take care of her students. Her husband is away a lot of the time. And, and she said, for a proud person, it's hard to accept help, or she wouldn't even think to ask for help because, she's okay. She's alive. She's working. She has money. But, she really did need the help. And that was a major safety net for her. And I don't know, she cried, and then the leader cried, the speaker cried, and we all cried. And that really stuck with me.
I thought Mayan was, and she was a young lady whose family, whose grandparents had been taken hostage, and subsequently we found out that the grandfather had been killed as a part of the when they brought him home. Unfortunately, he wasn't alive. The way that she spoke and the fact that she was actually taking it and looking at it from a teaching perspective, she was talking about it from her own perspective, but in her own feelings and her own personal experience. But she was really saying things to us about, well, what are you going to do? How are you going to help? And the other thing that really stuck with me then throughout this whole process, and it happened there too, was this sense of thankfulness and gratefulness that we were there, that we actually came and that we were supporting Israel by being there. The economy's been hit significantly due to the decline in tourism. Just the fact that we were there, we were supporting, we were being a part, we were trying to do our part, whatever we could do. I think there was such a level of thankfulness that was not necessary, but it was certainly palpable.
So two things for me. One was when we were visiting one of the kibbutzim that also has a program for pre-army. The Mechina program is high school graduates, but before they go in to serve, they have created this connection to be on the kibbutz, to learn and to do work on the kibbutz. Because even though back in the day, people only thought every Israeli was on a kibbutz, now that's not happening. And agriculture is actually becoming almost difficult to be able to get families to stay involved and work on the kibbutz, or work on farms. But we got to listen to a man, and just in happenstance, he said, our program is very large and all. And by the way, this was where Hirsch Goldberg, Poland, Olav Shalom, where he went to Mechina. And, you don't think about all the different connections. The Jewish geography is so real in Israel that everyone knows everyone. And that even though it's a large country with people, there is so many connections. So here we are, not even thinking about it. And then all of a sudden he mentioned that one of their graduates was someone that became a household name for everybody because of, unfortunately, him being taken as an American hostage and then his subsequent death, unfortunately. It really just showed you just everybody is connected. And there is no escaping. As Orly said, everyone is traumatized. I forgot my second one now, so. All right.
Yeah, I can. So I think, when we were at the Nova site, you look around and there's these beautiful memorials for so many people, and they're all unique and everything. And I remember walking around, and there was one that wasn't decorated. It just was the sign. And I went up and read it. And it was a 51-year-old father. I'm 51. So it kind of hit me. And it was written by his children. And he was a bartender at the festival. And what his children basically wrote was we know you could have gotten out, but you decided to stay. And he ended up saving the lives of many people before he was killed. And it really resonated with me. I thought, what would I have done in this situation? I found myself questioning that all the time. But looking at this father who had a life and children, and he chose to put his life at risk to save other people's children. And so it really resonated with me and made me think about it. And it was like a plain memorial, and they gave us candles where we could light memorial candles. And I chose to light for him because it felt like it could have been me or any one of my contemporaries.
The next one is not a question as much as each of you, meaning this is more writing, each of us, will each speak about one of the days, and then the others will add to their comment. Who wants to start?
So I'll start with the first day we were there. Again, while the four of us had really, only three of us had known each other well. We were all fortunate to meet Orly. The first day was a opportunity for all of us to get to meet each other. And then they had us go to a photography exhibit. The first thing, though, was we talked to the curator of this exhibit. And, looking back now, what a perfect way to start, to see pictures, not to see actual sites or not to see anything that really would be jarring to the mind. But these pictures was basically a day in the life of 2024. And so in 2024, of course, there were still hostages, there was still aftermath. So there were a lot of photos submitted from the aftermath of October 7th. But at the same time, there was life. And it showed us this jarring reminder of what we kept seeing. Life did go on. We saw a young children dance competition. We saw swimming competitions. We saw people standing around a band and enjoying the music. We just saw so many different things in that brief, well, not so brief, but in that photography exhibit that reminded us we weren't just coming to see sadness. We weren't just coming to see terror. We were coming to see life. And it really set the stage beautifully. So that was Monday. Tuesdays?
Okay. So I would say for me, Tuesday was probably the most emotional day. It was inspiring and tough, but we went for the morning to the Nova site. And this is where, they gave us time to walk around. And for me, I had seen so many photos of it, but to be there in person and again, see the memorials, but like how many of them there were was heartbreaking. And to read, I felt like I wanted to bear witness to every single story, because every story was a life and a family, lost. And what struck me about being at the Nova site was that everyone was trying to find a way to memorialize their loved ones. And we were lucky to hear the story of one person, and now I'm totally blanking. Aviel, and his sister's name? Reut. So they brought us, Reut came to tell the story of her brother who was at the festival. And she took us through the whole story of where he was and how they found him. And I don't know how detailed we want to go into stories, but it was really meaningful for us to hear a firsthand story. And she actually shared with us that like her way is she's created these tzedakah boxes with his photo on it because he was a very giving person. And she created these, and it was inspiring people in their own communities to give tzedakah in his memory to places that were meaningful for them. So we were able to bring home a tzedakah box that now sits in my office that people come and give tzedakah to because I shared the story, his story here. And so that was, we said the mourner's cottage there that was really powerful and very sad, but very meaningful to be there to pray for the people, not only the ones lost, but their families. So it was a really tough, but I felt like that was one of the things I wanted to bear witness to, and we were able to do that. I think the other meaningful part of the day, and I feel like we did so much on this day, was when we heard, first of all, we ate a lot of food. So, they fed us very well all the time, which actually, because they fed us well and all of that, we were able to focus. We weren't ever worried about what we were going to eat. But we met this Bedouin bus driver named Yusuf, and he told us his story. And when he told us the story, he was speaking in Hebrew. So those of us who didn't understand Hebrew had to listen to the translator, which was great. But I'll just briefly tell his story. He had been hired by a group of 20-somethings. He drove a minibus, and these kids hired him to take them to the Nova Festival, which he did, and then he was supposed to pick them up the next morning. And he was telling us it was a Saturday morning, like he was starting to call it like 6 a.m., and it's these kids calling him saying, Yusuf, we're being attacked, we need you to come pick us up. And he immediately, in fact, actually, he hadn't answered his phone, and his wife's like, someone's calling you, wake up. But he didn't hesitate. He got in his minibus and he drove to go get the kids. And what he didn't realize, which is what we found out, most people didn't realize the impact of what was actually happening. And so a lot of the Israelis thought this was like a typical sirens going off, it'll be done in a little bit. I think we heard that over and over from a lot of people. So he gets in his minibus to go drive, and people are telling him, turn around. He doesn't realize the impact. He ends up making it to the Nova site, gets the kids in the van, realizing how he had to drive through, he's risking his life. And this kids say to him, all right, we're all here, we'll go. And he's like, we are not leaving until this entire minibus is full. And he told the kids to open the door of the side, and he said, every single person we drive by, put them in the van. And so here is this Bedouin non-Jewish bus driver who is risking his life through these terrorist attacks and saving these kids. And I think he ended up saving 30? Yeah, 30 kids. And then what he told us was when he was driving back, the roads were full of terrorists. And because he knew the area, he was able to drive through fields and back roads. And he said, even though he saved these 30 kids, but people started following him through the back way. And so he was able to save even more people who followed him out. But I think after, what was impactful to me also was to hear what happened to him after, whereas one of these kids posts his information on Facebook and says, I've been saved by this Bedouin bus driver, things like that. And he's told us that people started calling him. A lot of people started calling him. One of them was he got a call from the Gaza Strip, and it was having his life threatened. And this person saying to him, like, why would you save these Jews? Why would you do this? And he said to them, they're Israeli, I'm Israeli, they're human, I'm human, and go fuck yourself, and hung up on him. And so he told us that story. And then the other one that I just feel like, he told us that a man called him one day and said, I want to meet you and I want to kiss your feet. And he said, why do you want to kiss my feet? And he said, because you saved my son. And he said, where did I save your son? And he said that his son was on the side of the road, injured. And the son texted the parents and said, I'm writing to say goodbye. I'll be watching over you. A goodbye text to his parents. And then 20, 30 minutes later, he gets another text from his son and said, I've been saved by a Bedouin bus driver and I don't even know his name. And so he was getting all these honors and accolades. But for him, when we saw him, it was just like, that's what I do. Like, that's how we help people. To him, it wasn't a heroic act. It was, this is what we do. And so to hear his story of how he was a father, a grandfather who went out and risked his life and saved 30 plus people, was really a telling story to Yusuf and his personality.
It was touching to me because I'm crying.
Yeah.
You aren't the only one.
Yeah.
And just as a side note, part of that original group, he has already taken on 2 other music festivals.
At every point that he says that they're going into areas of danger.
Yeah.
Every place he takes them, he says, why don't we just find another place that we can go for danger?
Yeah.
I'm taking you here, I'm taking you there, I'm taking you here, I'm taking you there. Let's just find some more places we can go that are dangerous. He's also been honored by the government.
Yeah.
It's been pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm not a hero, I'm a human.
Yeah.
I mean, just...
Yeah.
Now we have to do day 3.
Day 3, I believe.
I'm keeping track.
I think I'm day 3,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, that
Wednesday in Haifa.
Yeah. They really
Okay, so day 3, we went to Haifa. It was an interesting day to go. It was different because it certainly wasn't nearly as emotional as the day before. And it was a really good opportunity for us to have that space that we needed to really to be able to process what we had seen the day before. We went to a place called Beit HaGeffen, which was a Arab Jewish cultural center. And we got to hear from Hassan Haj, who spoke to us about what he does there. He's a speaker for the Speakers Bureau there. And he spoke to us and talked to us about how he tries to bring people together. Obviously, after October 7th, there's a lot of hate towards each other. And, so this is an area that is full of Muslims and Christians and Jews. And so their job is to try to bring these people together and try to help people feel like they can be a part of a society together and love one another and have peace. And so he was really very, very inspirational. We got to see art as far as the area that we were in. It rained that day. So we were in Wadi Nisnas was the city that we were in. And we got to see some art there. The art depicts the different culture in that area. Some of it is Jewish in nature, some of it is Christian in nature, some of it is Muslim in nature, some of it is has layers of things that have been done over and over and over again. It was a quaint little town, and it was something that was really very, very nice for us to be able to experience. I wish it hadn't been raining, but it was very, very nice for us to be able to experience this opportunity. Then we went to the social high school in Haifa, and one of the things that I noticed first was the dogs. There were dogs all throughout there, just in the classrooms, which was really neat. Just nice dogs, dogs that you could they were petting the dogs, they were having a good time with the dogs were laying around, and then this free-flowing kind of spirit there where the administrators and the teachers are interacting with the high school students in a way that is just different than what we do. This was an alternative type of a school. However, it didn't feel that way. It felt like these kids were just learning how to experience life, learning what they wanted to do, learning how they could be successful. And we got to make soap as a part of it. And I was like, are we really going to make soap? Is that something we're going to do? But the truth of the matter is it wasn't about making soap. It was about talking to these high school students and about listening to their stories and listening to what they want to do and their aspirations. And the truth of the matter is that after October 7th, they could have had different aspirations, but they want to be successful. They want to have joy in their life. They want to be able to do something good for themselves and good for their family and good for their country. And so it really was inspirational to see that. From there, we had the opportunity to go to Tel Aviv. And this was kind of a highlight for me. Got to see and sit with peace activist and poet Elias Cohen. And he was very, very inspirational. As most of you may know, there are letters that we get to see when an Israeli soldier is killed in the line of duty. Letters that he's written or she's written to their families, saying, they're basically a letter, basically telling them how to live their lives or what they want, whatever they want to say as something that's their last thing that they have for their family. He was involved in making sure that happened. He's the one who's helped inspire these soldiers and helped them create those letters. That was something that was very, very inspirational. At the same time, from a level of hope, he's written a book called Hineni, which is he's curated a bunch of poetry and a bunch of writings that have come from soldiers and commanders and people that are in the armed forces. And those are people that not necessarily have passed away. Those are people that have written things that just wanted to write. And he's done that. So it's very inspiring to see that as well. We had the opportunity to write our own. We had the opportunity to present our own. And it gave us something, and he really helped us process even further what we had seen. Then we got to see, I believe her name was Aya Zahava Beglin. She was one of the, she's a singer, songwriter, and she was really something special. And she really shared stories with us and talked about how after October 7th, she needed to do something. She really wanted to do something. So she didn't know what to do, but she's a musician. So what else is she going to do except do music? So she gathered up some of her musician friends, and they went and they were to the different places where the families of the hostages and the displaced individuals from all of the different places, she went and she would perform for them. And she started performing in a somber way. And they were like, stop that. We want to have some fun. We want to enjoy. So she was then played really more upbeat music. But she didn't play her own music because she felt that was self-promotion, and she didn't want to do that. So one time when she was performing, she was asked to perform one of her songs, and it was called Gibor, which is hero. And she was asked to perform that song, and she really didn't want to do it, but she was convinced and she did it. And she sang the song, and after the concert was over, someone came up to her and said to her, that song inspires me every day. And he was the person who had to arrange the funeral in his town, in his area. And he had to arrange 11 funerals that week. And he says, every time I leave, that I listen to that song before I go. And so it was very, very, very touching and very, very moving. And she just thought that, any way that she could help, in any way. And this was very, very inspirational. And that really was what we experienced. And it was really very, very moving. Very, very moving.
Okay, so Thursday was our last day, and we stayed in Tel Aviv. And that was our last day in Israel, unless people stayed later. But so that morning we stayed in the hotel, and we had the two speakers. We had Rachel Azaria, who I spoke about. She was the founder of OGAN, which means the anchor, and her job was to support, or the organization's job was to support the families of reservists. And she was really, really interesting. One thing she said That was interesting. Many things she said were interesting, but one thing that stuck out was she kept on asking the government, how much longer do I need to do this? Or like, how much longer is this war going to be? How many more months could I budget for? She was just trying to get like logistical answers because this is something new, and she just couldn't get answers. And and right now we know that so many more reservists are going to be called up, so she's going to be very busy. So it just kind of shows you what they're dealing with. It's so uncertain. Everything is so uncertain. And then we got to meet Ma'ayan. Up here. She's a beautiful young woman. She's, I don't know, must be in her early 20s. Her grandfather, Oded Lifshitz, was taken hostage. Also her grandmother. Her grandmother was returned in the first month, but her grandfather was still there. And when we were there, it was during the ceasefire where hostages were coming home every week. And she knew he was going to come home, but she didn't know if he was going to be dead or alive. He was on the list of hostages to come home, but Hamas didn't tell Israel which were dead and which were alive. So at that time, she still didn't know. She actually told us she was going to plan a trip. She was planning a trip to America. Different congregations invited her. And when she was planning it, she basically said, well, I can't come on the week that hostages are coming home alive, because if my grandfather comes home alive, then I obviously need to be here. But she was willing to go if he was coming home on the week that hostages were coming home not alive, because her grandfather had told her, you don't stay around for a funeral. So unfortunately, we later learned that her grandfather didn't come home alive, which was really sad. She was incredibly strong. I mean, I just can't even imagine. She did finish her university studies, but it really was dedicating her life to talking to people and spreading the words of the hostages. And she took us to Hostage Square, which was interesting when we got there because we see it on television all the time. And we were there during the hostage releases, but we weren't there for it. We were there starting on Sunday and we left Thursday. That was the trip. And the hostage releases happened on Saturday. So it was interesting to be there because it was pretty empty. I mean, there were people, but it wasn't packed or anything like that because it was just the middle of a Thursday. Everybody is at work. But that Saturday, it was going to be full of people waiting to see who's being released, like not even knowing who's going to be released. And it was very rainy, so all the exhibits were sort of wet and somewhat ruined. But not really, because this is part, like Ma'ayan told us, this is part of their reality. They've been gone for so long that when the table first came out, it was like beautiful and white and crisp, and now it's drab and rainy and things are wet, but people still come and add to it because that's just part of their life. But it was a lot. It was a lot to take in because there were just so many exhibits. There was a piano from one of the hostages. I think he might still be there, right? Yeah. He's still there, and he's alive, right? I forgot his name.
Alone.
Ohel?
I can't remember his last name.
And he's he's a piano player, so his parents dedicated this beautiful yellow piano. We went through the tunnel. And the things that really stick out are the little stickers that the parents make and put everywhere for either their child who was killed in battle or their child who was killed on that day on October 7th. There are even little stickers that say things like, Achi Adayin Begaza or Ba'ali Adayin Begaza, meaning my brother, like that's all the sticker says. My brother is still in Gaza, my husband is still in Gaza. And those were so impactful. So that was a lot. It was challenging. Then we ended, I believe, the whole trip. We went and had lunch, and we got to meet Etgar Keret, who I was not familiar with before, but he's a very famous author. And he's an Israeli author. He has very interesting stories. So he was very entertaining. But I did, because I don't know, I met him in person. I bought his memoir, and I highly recommend it. I think it's called The 7 Years, and it's such a beautiful book. I don't really like short stories, and he's a short story writer, so I've never gravitated towards him. But he basically wrote this memoir of his life, and it's like a series of short stories about his life. But it's so beautiful, and it really gives you insight into the complexity of just being an Israeli. And I think he wrote it before October 7th. I'm not sure. But, just the way he talks about his son going to the army, and he's very funny and very entertaining. It's heavy, but it's not presented in a heavy package. So I definitely recommend it for anybody who wants to to understand what it means to live in Israel, what it means to be an Israeli. It's just so beautifully written and so funny, like laugh out loud funny, but so poignant. And that was our last day, and then we said goodbye to each other, and we kind of went our own way.
Next one is, what made the program unique, different other mission trips?
So I think what made this program unique and different wasn't necessarily about the places we were going. It was more about the people we were visiting with. So it wasn't your typical, we didn't even go to Jerusalem as a group. It wasn't your typical seeing all of the sites, but more visiting the people. And so I wasn't sure exactly. When I will go to Israel, I want to see the sites, which I did on my own a little bit before. But I realized at the end how impactful it was to actually hear the testimonials and to be in Israel. And I think for me, I was nervous about going just in general. I had a lot going on in life and, leaving, and you just wonder about the safety and all of that. But I remember when we were there feeling so like my soul was filled by being there. I just felt like I was supposed to be there. It was the right thing to do. I felt inspired. My renewed love. I've always been, a Zionist and things like that, but it just kind of renewed that for me. And so being there, hearing the people was definitely different than different mission trips or things that I've been on before, which were very much site-centered. This was not only about the devastation, but it was also about the future. And so how we can be helpful in securing the future of Israel.
The question is, how was it different? So it wasn't even a mission trip. It definitely wasn't a touring trip. And it wasn't really even a mission trip. It was called an encounter. And it's really just about encountering different parts of Israeli society. Letting them, getting exposed to them, and there was no direction as to how we should feel. There was time to process, but there was no direction as to how we should feel or what's the right feeling. It was about just learning about how different kinds of Jews and different kinds of Arab Israelis are dealing with everything that's happened. And that was, I think, very special to see.
I think I can assume that we can all say it was the shortest trip. Of being in Israel. But it was so fulfilling and just things we didn't know and things, we didn't know physically, our stamina. We didn't know so much about ourselves, how we would be able to go through an AM to a late PM and then boom, right back again, getting up a little bit earlier and staying out a little bit later. And it was all very so well done that we didn't realize just literally how many hours we were out and active until it was, late at night. But each time we woke up and we had more energy. So it really was just something that we definitely can't do it again in our own, we can't recreate it. And I'm really glad that we're all able to share together because we all had different experiences, but we all could definitely say we didn't feel exhausted. And yeah, we might have catnapped if it was, in between locations or something, but there was never any, I'm going to sit this one out. There was never any, I'm not going to go to the night activity. We didn't have a choice. We weren't back at our hotel, but it was just, the body doesn't know what the mind can really absorb in such a small amount of time. So it really just spoke so much beyond just a trip to Israel.
It was certainly not a history trip. Mm-mm. It was a culture-oriented type of a program, and it really was about experiencing something different than the sites. It was about experiencing what people are doing, what people are, how people are acting. It was photography, it was poetry, it was singing, it was experiencing the just deep humanity, what people would do in situations like this. It was basically, an opportunity for us to look inside ourselves and to be able to see what would we do? How would we respond? How would we react to certain situations like this? And would we rely upon the things that we do every day to try to enhance that? Or would we do something different? What would we do? How would we respond? It was really very moving to experience that. And I just felt that the other thing that I liked was that I was one of the older people on the trip. Was the young people that were on it, and how they were the people that were participating in the program. They were inspired. They were moved. That was really important to me.
Before I go to the three things left, but before I go to that, how were you chosen to go on the trip? That isn't in here.
No, it isn't. So I'll share that. So the Israel at the Center Fund of the Dallas Jewish Community Foundation has for many years created a program called the Schultz Fellows that provided a year of education, including a trip to Israel for, at times, educators of the Jewish community, community members of the Jewish community, and or those that worked in the Jewish community. So for many years, that was the cadence of the Schultz Fellows. And all along, they worked with the I Center, which is an amazing resource based out of Chicago that basically provides formal and informal education about Israel for all of North America. So that relationship was what, how the Schultz family, J.D. Schultz in particular, introduced to the foundation, hey, there's a great opportunity. The I Center is taking educators and leaders from throughout the country. Can we get a group from Dallas? So originally we tried to talk to a lot of educators and all, but of course the timing to go in the middle, the first week of February isn't always easy for educators, since that is, just regular school time. But we were very fortunate to get both Tara and Orly, as educators in our community. And then they had extended the trip for me as staff person, and also I was able to spend a little bit of time researching and visiting with agencies that we were able to, that our foundation gives grants to through the generosity of our fund holders. Artie was able to, because of his retirement, Artie was able to join us. And the initial thought was he wasn't going to go on this program. And when I said that he was going to be, I wanted to pay for the hotel room for Artie to stay in, and they said, oh, well, he's welcome to come along. And so it was.
So she told me that I would be doing it.
It's married life. What did you learn about yourself because of this trip? Hard question.
That's a hard question.
So much that we could ever put into words, I think. The resiliency that we now have, now we being witness, we're able to feel and experience things on a different level. I can't say when I come home after a long day that I'm tired, because I can think of so many other people whose days are still continuing because they don't have a choice. And it's given me a different kind of energy. I really feel like I have more purposeful meaning in my job, in my volunteerism, in my activism, and just me personally as a wife, parent, relative, and friend. It truly has reignited my love of Judaism and of Israel.
I would say I'm very similar to what Mona said. I mean, we get really busy in our work and our lives, and I probably at the time we went, I wasn't feeling very inspired. And so in my work and just a lot. And so it did give me that inspiration. I also feel like it gave me more tools part of the goal was that we come back to our community and share. And I feel like now I have almost like stories in my back pocket that I'm able to throw into conversations with people that I wasn't able to before. So that informal education type of piece, and also take some things that we learned about and that inspired me and put them into place, but in different ways, but yet with the inspiration here in Dallas. And so I've been able to take some of that with me, bring it to our community here at the J. There are stories that I've told that people now reference here. So I feel like it's really made an impact. But for me, it was just inspiration that I needed. And like I mentioned before, it filled my soul, which I needed some soul filling at the time that we went. So that was a good injection for me in regards to my love for Judaism and Israel and how we want to approach things here at the J and in Dallas.
So I will say that since October 7th, I've been, I don't know what the right word is, depressed. It's not the right word. It's more like crushed with all the rise in anti-Semitism. I mean, in addition to what's going on in our country, but just to see this, not a rise in anti-Semitism, it's an unveiling of anti-Semitism. It's just accepted now, it's normalized, and it has been very hard for me to accept that, especially since I teach a lot about Holocaust. I teach the March of the Living class. I've been to Poland, and to see that that's not history, it was just kind of covered up for a little bit, and that was very hard, and I was really struggling with that, like keeping me up at night, and going to Israel gave me strength to deal with it. Made me stronger about it. It gave me perspective. It reminded me, because I see these Israelis, they just have a different attitude about anti-Semitism, about danger, about being Jewish, about Israel surviving. They're almost like, F that, we've been through this before. This is part of life, but it doesn't matter. We're going to survive no matter what, which is the truth. That's our Jewish history. We've had 3,000 years of surviving no matter what. So it's given me a little bit more perspective, so I don't know what to say, wallow or let it get to me. It's still shocking every day to hear something. Even this week, I don't know, I'm just going to call him out. The Pope, when he got inaugurated, had to mention, you don't have to mention war in your inauguration, but if you're going to mention a war and civilian deaths, why are you only mentioning one war in the world, where there's devastating wars going on now all over the world? You're not mentioning Christians being massacred in sub-Saharan Africa. But, so things like that before would have just crushed me. And now I remember, look, popes have always done this to us. They've done way worse. And it just reminded me we're Jews. We have the Torah, we have Hashem, we have each other, we have our nation, now we have a land. And it's not as crushing.
For me, I think that it has heightened my awareness in everything that I do. Anything and everything that I do, it's just heightened my awareness. Am I grateful for something? I'm more grateful for it now. Am I concerned about something? I'm more concerned about it now. Am I, when I'm reading about Israel and I'm reading about different things that are going on, I want to know what's happening. I want to know what's going on. I want to see it from all perspectives, all sides. I want to see what I can do to have some impact, even if it's just talking to people and really discussing it with people. I will tell you that one of the things that I thought was interesting, and I think it really did impact the number of people that went, was that there's this feeling that this is a war-torn country. And the truth of the matter is when we're there, we're not experiencing any of that. Mm-hmm. We're experiencing the opportunity to be able to see things from a different perspective. It's not war everywhere. It's not fighting everywhere. It's just like any everyday life. So I think that there's a misperception or a misconception about what is happening, there. And so I think I have the opportunity also to help people understand that go and experience, go to Israel, go and enjoy, go and experience a beautiful, beautiful country and really be able to immerse yourself in that. And don't worry about that, the other, because there really isn't a whole lot to worry about. And the truth of the matter is that it's a very sophisticated country. Although, there were some concerns about intelligence and security in reference to this situation, they're still a very, 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 very solid, safe, secure country.
Last item on here is how will you apply and spread what you experienced in your work and involvement? You already started speaking about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I've told a lot of stories to any constituents that were listening to staff, to the seniors. In fact, some of the seniors who are here every day knew that I went, and they said, we want to spend time with you. And we sat in that cafe, and I told them as many stories as I could. It was just such an interesting conversation. Because they, what you just said, Artie, is they are picturing Israel as a war. That the future of Israel is devastating and things like that. And so to sit down with several of these seniors who have that impression and to share my stories, they left with a whole new hope. At least that's what they said, of like, we didn't realize that. We're only hearing the terrible things. And so just to give them that little bit of hope for the future, and, you know, as they're nearing the end of their lives and thinking about what Israel and Judaism give them that little piece of, you know, like hope. So I've been sharing a lot of stories. We're doing some new work here at the J, just inspired by different people that I've heard about.
So I teach classes on mostly Israel, Jewish history as well. And I definitely use a lot the poems, the pictures I took, the stories, you know, the writing. I mean, they're now all over my classes. I try to teach from a multi-perspective view, whatever I'm teaching, so it really, really helps a lot.
To echo, it's a lot of the stories, and just people want to hear this. Possibly because they're perplexed and they only think of the news view of Israel. I always remind people, we had a hard time getting into reservations for restaurants. There is an active social scene. There is a nightlife. You will not see doom and gloom. You will see life. And that's always been the way of Israel. So it's not changed. I'm really excited about professionally to have this partnership with the Dallas Jewish Historical Society to be able to use their historical testimonials that they do with their interviews, and to be able to tell a story that still has so much time to be circulated as fresh. And so we hope that this video gets circulated and seen by people that might not know us, and we might not be in their circle where they can come and see us in person, but to really be able to learn. We really do still want to be able to make sure everyone knows about Israel today.
I don't know how to use this in this interview, but as an interviewer, we've had the opportunity to answer questions that you've given us, and you've been inspired by some of the things that we've said. You can tell because you've been emotional, you've been thought-provoking, and I appreciate that. And so if we can have the impact, if I can have the impact on one person through my stories, through the things that I've learned, through the things that I've experienced, and be able to help them understand what's going on and help them be inspired, that's all that really matters to me.